All right, look at that. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? It's the freaking Philadelphia Eagles. Unfortunately, I'm contractually obligated to talk about this team, which apparently is the defending Super Bowl champion. I'll tell you what, as soon as that ball kicks off on the 5th or 4th or 5th of September, that year it's the new year and they are no
Right.
longer I'm no more Super Bowl talk. We're focused on forward, but as we focus on the forward, I do have to say yes, Philadelphia Eagles reigning Super Bowl champions. Whoop-de freaking do. Okay, glad for you to finally get multiple and you still have the least in the division. Anyway, your Philadelphia Eagles coming off a 14-3 year last season. Let's talk their free agency. A lot of losses and a decent amount of additions here. So interesting because they took a decent amount of players from in the division. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that works out for them. All right, I'm going to break down their free agency, losses, additions, and Derek's going to give us a what's the overall takeaway here. So lost Kenny Pickett to the Browns, who may or may not be their starter this year. Kenneth Gainwell over to Pittsburgh. Paris Campbell, who's been passed around more times than, I don't know, what can I say, PG? I'm just thinking about maybe a blunt rotation. But yeah, Paris Campbell's been passed around quite a bit. I mean, he was on the Giants, then he was obviously on the Eagles. Now he's going to the Cowboys and never really gets any playing time. So interesting. Mekhi Becton, that is a pretty big loss. Someone who was basically from their off the streets program. And they really, I mean, Jason or Stallworth there, I can't wait until that guy retires. He just takes, anything and makes them to great offensive linemen.
All pro offensive
I mean, rugby players, anybody.
Yeah.
Branningham is retired. He has a torn triceps to go ahead and go with his Super Bowl ring there. Josh Sweat over to the Cardinals. Bryce Huff, who never really worked out for them, going to the 49ers. Yeah. Milton Williams, another starter on the defensive line, leaving, going to the Patriots. Oren Burks, who stepped up very nicely for them when Nakobe Dean went down, going to the Bengals. James Badbury, Isaiah Rodgers, Darius Slay, and CJ GJ, former Gator himself, all gone. So, definitely getting younger on the defensive line and the secondary. Guys they brought in, sure, DTR, AJ Dillon, don't expect much there. Neither do I. Terrace Marshall, Harrison Bryant. Kenyon Green does have a chance to kind of rotate in with, Steen there at the guard position after losing Becton. Azeez Ojulari coming over from my Giants, who looks great in spurts, but has never not gone a season without ending up in the IR. So we'll see how that looks for them. Josh Uche, former Michigan man. Dory Jackson, who, again, is a guy who can show flashes, but will likely end up on the IR. And then the linebacker, Jihaad Campbell, arguably the best linebacker coming out of college football from Alabama, but is dealing with a major injury. And then Andrew Nakobe from Texas there. So they lost a lot, which happens when players, they get excited, they come off good years, and they want to make the most money they can. So you can't bring them all back. So it kind of makes sense there. What are you thinking with all this turnover there, especially on the defensive side of the ball for this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, the offense should look fairly similar. It'll be interesting to see, will Saquon be able to be the same guy that he was last year after a 400 carry year? But defensively, this team looks massively different.
Yep.
Losing basically probably I'll say 2/3 of their defensive line, losing a lot of guys out of their secondary in Slay and CJGJ. So, yeah, I mean, this is not the same Eagles defense that we've seen over the last couple of years that has been pretty damn dominant. And a couple of their other studs on defense are coming off of major injuries in Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean. So, offensively, I still think they'll go and put up some points. But defensively, I have my doubts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, offense should look pretty much the same. I mean, only thing I'll say is the offensive line does get another year older at the tackle position there for, Mailata and Jelaine Johnson, but that's really just hopeful wishing because they've been studs. Yeah. And then, the defense is completely changed, and I don't care what anybody says. We'll see. I know Eagles fans have been telling me, oh, no, Josh Sweat's not that good. Brandon Graham didn't do much. Bryce Huff didn't do anything. Whatever they want to say. They got a lot of questions on the defense.
I mean, when you have guys that you can rotate in every other play and have that depth that they've had over the last couple of years,
It's just not there.
It's not there anymore. Yeah, exactly. They may not have done as much statistically. That's just because they were only on the field a third of the time because they had guys just rotating through.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see again. I mean, look, the talent on the offense is there. The core is still there.
Yes.
But change is coming in Philadelphia. So we will see. And part of this change is we're going to talk about the injuries here. Let's start with the one offensive injury I want to speak to. Cam Jurgens, back surgery. We talked about back surgeries in previous episodes. They're a little bit wonky. It's not something you exactly want to do, but he was having some nerve pain. Hopefully, they were able to get to those nerves and just kind of, what they could have cinched him down, burned him down, whatever it may be. But we don't know the exact procedure there. We just know he had a back surgery to address nerve pain. Typically like 4 to 6 months. The impressive is that he played through it in both the divisional round and the the conference championship and the Super Bowl. They had a couple guys. Landon Dixon played through a knee injury. Nolan Smith tore his triceps during the Super Bowl. I will say you cannot discredit the toughness of that Eagles team from last season. So that is one thing I will say. But Cam Jurgens comes in, should be good on time. Back a little bit wonky. What are we thinking for Jurgens at that center position there?
Yeah, I think he'll, back, whether it's for week 1, time will tell. Because I mean they brought in Quinyon Green at guard. I mean, I believe he's played some center.
Most of them have,
over the years, but mostly guard. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they moved him or Steen over there to center to fill in while Jurgens is gone. But he did a hell of a job filling in for Jason Kelce last year.
Yeah,
he stepped right in, and that was one of the big questions last year. He filled a hole great.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where he'll probably be back week 1, 2, 3, something like that. And
I would say it's more likely than not he's probably good to go. We'll see. We'll monitor for training camp, but he should be good. Now on the defense, now we have some questions here. Yeah. So let's start with the linebacker position in Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
On against the Packers in the divisional round, I believe. On the 12th of January, patellar tendon tear. Major injury. Takes about 8 to 10 months to recover. Not quite as long as an ACL, not quite as bad, but still not an easy injury to come back from. He's going to have 8 months from the injury date to week 1 of the season. I expect him to be on the pup and, come back maybe back half of the year, something like that. Sure. We shall see. What say you on Nakobe Dean coming back from major knee there?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the patellar tendon tear, for those of you that don't know, your patellar tendon is basically the continuation of your quad tendon, and your quads are the main muscle group right on the front of your thigh there. Big, powerful muscles that put a lot of force through the front part of your knee. Yep. So without that patellar tendon, your knee's not working right. And so from an injury timeline standpoint, definitely right there on the cusp of week 1. I don't think you'll be back week 1 necessarily. I think this is, maybe return week 3, 4, give him another 3 or 4 weeks to kind of work back into the swing of things, especially when they drafted Jihaad Campbell, who's also coming off of a major injury. We'll see, if he's going to be able to give them a ton of production over the first, third of the season.
Right. Yeah. Let's get right into it. Jihaad Campbell, right? They drafted him to kind of help out that linebacking core, expecting Dean probably not going to be back right away. But it's interesting because he has a labral tear, and he probably injured himself, back in late December. But he didn't have the surgery until after the combine, so he could kind of fight through it and produce. And then he had surgery. So he didn't have surgery until like early March. Yeah. So that only gives him 6 months before week 1 to get back into the system and get back into football shape and all those things. Yep. It's typically a 6 to 8 month, recovery time with this labral tear. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, he may be able to play with a brace still and kind of, get out there and figure it out. But he's not going to be 100% by the time week 1 rolls around. So this is going to be an interesting situation between you got 2 guys at the same position who have a lot of potential, but are both coming off pretty significant injuries here.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of a team guy Jihaad Campbell is, because it's one of those things where I could see him throwing a brace over his shoulder and him toughing through the first 4 or 5 weeks until Nakobe Dean can start, coming into the swing of things. Just not expecting a ton from him, because anytime he takes a hit or makes a tackle into that shoulder, he's probably going to feel a little bit.
Yeah.
But labral tears don't necessarily worry me as much with defensive guys as quarterbacks, obviously, who are using their shoulders a ton. But they do take, some major abuse when it comes to making hits. So yeah, I think Jihaad Campbell, I could see him starting the year, but I could also see him, kind of limping through the first half of the year.
Right. And I wouldn't blame him as a rookie. He knows Dean's probably not going to be out there the first month or so. So he wants to kind of cement his legacy there for his new team. Yeah. I mean, this is a big position of concern. You have Zack Baun on the other side at the inside linebacker spot.
Who came on like a stud.
Yeah.
Hey,
I guess.
Thumbs up there.
Yeah. Zack Baun probably deserves a thumbs up. But yeah, that other inside linebacker spot is a question. If
they drafted Jeremiah Trotter the year before that, so he might be able to fill in there a little bit as well.
I mean, what was he, like a 6th round pick? I mean, come on,
like that.
But I mean, he's not. Yeah, he was a 5th round pick, and he's had 25 tackles in his career. So we'll see. But if either of those guys were healthy, I think they're probably pretty solid there.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
They're just not. So we'll see. And then going on, Nolan Smith, a guy who tore his triceps in the Super Bowl and kept playing. That's pretty cool. Yeah. More like a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline. He's got 7 months. He should be okay. I mean, we just saw Brandon Graham basically come back in like, oh gosh, it seems like 10 weeks, 8 weeks, or something crazy like that.
Something absolutely insane.
I mean, he was basically out there with one arm, but I mean, good for him. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think Nolan Smith is someone we're gonna have a little bit more optimism on. So he should have the full recovery time on there.
Yep.
So some interesting things, some guys dealing with some injuries there, but really that inside linebacker 2 position is the one of concern. All right, let's talk about some of these fantasy takeaways here. Saquon.
Yeah.
This is the big question is, do you discredit what you just saw and, him having an incredible situation, one of the better offensive lines, a quarterback that's a run threat, and having one of the best seasons the running backs ever had?
Yep.
Or do you discredit all that and say he's got too many carries, he's an injury risk? Or do you say the situation's basically the same, why would you fade this guy? That would be idiotic. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, I went back and forth with this one. I think I'm going to be, skipping out on the Saquon Barkley train when it comes to fantasy, to be honest with you. I mean, depends on where I am, in that first round, because there's no way that he's getting out of the first round still.
Right.
But at the same time, this is a guy that, historically hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last year was his first year since his rookie year that he played they held him out of the 17th game, but he would have played the 17th game, played all the games that he was available for. But this is a guy that averages about 1,300 yards a season. This is the first major outbreak that we've seen from Saquon Barkley. Obviously, his offensive line is way better than any that he had when he was with your Giants there, but I do see him taking a little bit of a step back, partially due to the amount of workload that he had last year. And 2, is the dude going to stay healthy? Because, again, he's only played in all 16 games a couple other times.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. I did not expect this, but as the Eagles hater, Saquon Barkley is my RB3. He's right behind Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs and right in front of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I would still say he's my RB3 too, but I think early on, I would be hesitant to take Saquon over some of the top wide receivers like Puka and CeeDee Lamb.
Right. Okay, that's fair. I mean, yeah. So
yeah, if he's there at 8, hell yeah, I'm taking Saquon Barkley.
Right, I won't be fading Saquon. I'm not going to be drafting.
I'm not taking him in the top 5. We'll put it that way.
Right. Okay. Top 5, yeah, not for me. Top 10, yes. Top 5, no.
Yes.
For Saquon there, but I think he's gonna have another good year. It's gonna be unfortunate. We'll see. I'm gonna keep my good karma we don't wish any injury on anybody here. We just break them down. So we will see. It is a lot of touches, but dude's a freak. So we'll kind of see there. He's set up in the perfect situation. I said it last year. He was probably going to have a really good year. I'm saying it again. He's got the perfect situation. He's a great running back. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's move on to the betting space here. 14-3 last year. Win total, if you go the 10.5 route, you're playing heavy juice for the over. If you go the 11.5 route, it's a little bit probably more easy to kind of get to there. Over about plus 110, under minus 130. To make the playoffs, heavy favorites, minus 375 to minus 450. Miss the playoffs, you can get it anywhere from plus 285 to plus 340. To win the division, they're around minus 130, minus 145 favorites. To win the NFC, they are about 3-1, sometimes plus 370 you can get. And to win the Super Bowl, anywhere from plus 650 to plus 750. So obviously one of the top dogs in the NFL because they just won the damn thing. Where are we at with this Eagles team? Do we like any of their futures, win total, anything like that?
I'm staying away from all of the above, mainly because this NFC East is just all over the place year after year after year. It's been over 20 years since a team has repeated as NFC East champions. And, the Eagles had a dominant year last year, but just historically, the NFC East has been a little bit of a grind and teams don't necessarily repeat. So I'm staying away from all of the above. But at the same time, I can still see them making the playoffs. I can still see them rattling off 12 wins. It's just one of those things where historically it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, they're going to be a good team. They've got way too much offensive talent, barring anything crazy injury-wise. They're going to be a solid team. I don't think they're going to be as good last year. I think their defense is going to be pretty significantly worse, actually. If I had to say, between the defensive line and the secondary, I mean, Quinyon Mitchell and DeJean are great players, but you got a guy like Keely Ringo you're going to have to rely on who's never
Probably
really
not
been
getting
able
as
to
much
do
push
it.
up front.
I have questions at the safety position still. Again, that pass rush we talked about, you don't have the depth there. So, I think that, the offense is going to have to do a little bit more. And getting into that, my play here, I've got one play on this. I've kind of got two, but around one guy. It's Jalen Hurts. One thing I think is going to happen a lot is I think they're going to run the tush push a fuck ton. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder, and I don't blame them for. I think it was extremely soft for the NFL to come together and try to ban a play that's completely legal and that you can run yourself. So I don't get that. So give me Jalen Hurts over 12.5 rush touchdowns at minus 105 over at DraftKings there. He had 14 last year, even with Saquon Barkley. He's hit this number in hold on one second. Where's his numbers at? Yes, he's hit this number in the past 3 seasons, having 13, 15, and 14 touchdowns. They're a run-first team, and when they're around the red zone, I mean, he's liable to just get in almost every single game. But I am going to take his under 19.5 passing touchdowns. He only had 18 last year. He's kind of been around this number in his career. My kind of philosophy with this is when they're around the red zone, it's just going to be the Saquon and Jalen Hurts legs show. I just think that's like what they do. I mean, they're just going to rely on the offensive line and just either tush push their way in or just Barkley is going to run for it or whatever it may be. I know it's a low number, but again, he only had 18 last year. With him running so much, he does carry an injury risk that any running quarterback has. So I that's where I'm going to be at there. I couldn't give all good news for these Eagles, so I'll go the over rushing touchdowns, the under on the passing touchdowns. They're obviously a little bit correlated. I think he's going to get do a little bit more of the tush push because I think they're going to want to give a big fuck you to the rest of the league just to make a point. And if there's one coach that's an asshole enough to do it, it's Nick Sirianni. So all right, what do you got for the Eagles?
Yeah, I'll co-sign your under 19.5 passing touchdowns, which I'm not going to spend a ton of time because I agree with basically everything that you just said. So, give me Hurts under 19.5 at plus 110. I do think they like to pound the rock, like you mentioned, whether it's Saquon, whether it's Jalen Hurts around the goal line. giving the Eagles to score at least one rushing touchdown in every regular season game, all 17 at 6-1.
Okay.
And then let me flip back over to Saquon and talk about him a little bit more since we haven't already enough. But Saquon had a hell of a year last year, over 2,000 yards, probably would have broken the single season rushing yards record if it wasn't for holding him out against your New York Giants, which I'm still a little bit salty that I didn't get the 3+ touchdowns against the Giants last year. But I'm taking his under 1450.5 this year. The only season that he's gone over this number was last year. And historically, he's a guy that does pick up some injuries. Again, we don't necessarily want to wish injury on anybody, but it just hasn't happened all that often with Saquon. So, give me his under 1450 at -110, I believe. Yeah, -110.
Yeah, I mean, 1,400 yards in a season is still a pretty damn good year. So, I mean, at some point it does get too high, and you do have to start, factoring in for the offensive line. It's very similar, but there is some changes. You got Jurgens with the back. You got rid of Mekhi Becton. How's Steen going to step in there? And yeah, their greatest predictor of injury is previous injury to those body parts. He's had high ankles. He's had ACL.
Exactly.
He's a running back, and he's, getting close to his 30s, and he's had a lot of touches. So we'll see. Again, not someone we're directly fading. Well, you are in this sense, but I think Saquon Barkley can have a good year.
I can still see him running for 1,300+ yards.
Right.
That's a hell of a year for 98% of running backs. So.
Right. Exactly. So, all right, for these 2025 Philadelphia Eagles, still expecting them to be a good, solid team. Definitely expect them to be in the postseason. However, some changes on defense. A lot of change on defense, some changes in the offensive line. That core group for the offense should be together. Saquon and Jalen Hurts should do their thing on the ground. However, the concern for touches is there. We think they're going to do most of their work through the ground and really going to hammer that tush push in. Derek taking them to score a rushing touchdown in every game at plus 6-1, and me taking the over 12.5 rush touchdowns for Jalen Hurts there. That is quite enough about the Philadelphia Eagles for this season.
Giants fan.
Yes, now we're about to move on to the greatest team to walk this earth. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about the Fantasy Football Expo, the 2025 Fantasy Football Expo, kicking off August 8th through the 10th in beautiful Canton, Ohio. There, go to fantasyfootballexpo.com to get your tickets now, today. You don't, got less than a month left, so jump on that, folks. And then our friends over at Fast Draft Fantasy. It is prime fantasy season, and you only want to do it over at Fast Draft Fantasy. Look, folks, nobody likes a slow drafter. It's a best ball format with 20 seconds on the clock, all drafts under 10 minutes. This is very simple. Download Fast Draft Fantasy today. Use promo code PlusDGenDoc. Deposit $50, and boom, a free $50.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.